ethics and all those sort of genuinely defining good and bad type schools of philosophy really seem largely focused on the big, pompous, almost metaphysical questions like, to be moral, do I need to believe in a god? To be moral, do I need to follow a holy book? To be moral, do I need to do things in a deontological or a teleological way? Do I need to this or that? So, and whatever. But generally, it is largely on the wider scale, which, of course, in living our lives, we want to answer the big questions too, but with ethics being the study of the morality system, doesn't it make sense to have at least some, there is definitely a little bit, but more is necessary, of a focus on the smaller things, because the smaller moral decisions, those little issues, are of course more frequent. The things we face day to day are more important to us maintaining good and righteousness as humans, if we know how to, compared to the larger, more pompous and pretentious questions actually asked in studies of ethics. Like, realistically, if you want to live entirely moral, questions like, do I need, the theory of natural law to live morally, is completely valueless compared to, is it moral to piss in the shower? Because you only come across actual consequence and actual actions of these large, huge, voluptuous questions of substance yet no meaning and observable consequence very finite times, if any, during your life, and your decisions, which will be deemed as good or bad throughout your life, do not involve them. They involve a much smaller scale system, which we should know more about, seeing as it is our literal everyday decision. To be good, we need to focus on doing good, not being a good being, basically. By being a good being, I mean sort of, if we're not doing our actions good either in doing deontologically or consequentially, and we're just trying to maintain this aura of, goodness via whatever it may be, natural law or whatever theological or ideology, I'm not even going to try and say it again, whatever one we're following around ourselves and putting into our every action, but realistically aren't actually putting into anything, that is not going to make us in any way good, because it's not going to change those small actions which mean everything, really. Our goodness comes in our deeds, not our intentions. Yes, there's argument over good deeds can be done for wrong intentions and bad deeds done for good ones, and I do stand by that a lot, but realistically, if you're putting so much emphasis on the fact that, this person must be good because they're following a thesis of ethics written by some specific God-fearing or God-denying philosopher, then realistically they are less likely to actually be living good, because just accepting and acknowledging doesn't equate to following, and even following it then doesn't equate to goodness, because it's only valuing those large metaphysical transcendental aspects, not the actual good we can physically do day to day. Our ethical decisions should be one-to-one, a scale of humanity, and not a scale of beyond, not a scale of divinity. We should be able to be doing good, not accepting that we are being good. Ethics is not a science, it's not a religion, it's not an ideology, it's not a theory. It should be a practice with no baggage. It shouldn't be a Catholic thing, it shouldn't be a philosophical thing, it shouldn't even be a debated thing. It should just be a practice, something we do day to day and don't question and don't compare to these wider expanses that really do not need to come into contact with morality, because if you're living a good life, you don't need to understand why, which of course is a big question philosophers ask, and saying that to a philosopher would probably piss them off, but it's true, honestly. Goodness is goodness. Goodness doesn't need to be evaluated, assessed, and analysed. It needs to be done. Dedicating time to doing it rather than defining it as something greater is in your best interest. It is the more practical, pragmatic thing, and I know personally I don't like pragmatists, but here it makes sort of some sense to be at least somewhat pragmatic. So do good. Don't accept goodness as some ethical theory. Just try and be good however you define good, because if you define good in a certain way and do good and you get a positive response, that's goodness. If you do good and don't get a positive response, that's probably not goodness. Try again. You didn't fail, but it didn't go right. There's a difference. So just do practicable good rather than analysable, pompous, positive ethics.